So we are continuing with assignment 1, following our course outline. And a way to shortcut to it, we don't need to go through the whole unit 4 to get introduced to it with the question today and all that. We can go right to assignments. So assignments is our shortcut to where we post the assignments, right? So that's where we posted exercise 1, exercise 2. And then if you click here, it will go to the examples, the past student examples of the assignment. But here we'll go right to the page where we turn it in. The assignments page off of the Canvas homepage is also useful because I have extra resources here that can give you some context for this technique. So I just wanted to point these out in case you want to explore them. This is a link to some final presentations by students, just snippets from them, where they shared a compositing artist, professional artist that they really admired. These can be commercial artists, these could be fine artists. So we start with this contemporary fine artist who does surreal photography, Eric Johansson. He does them with photographs for publications, for fine art sales, for gallery shows. And what's interesting about his work is he just sketches them out first, ideas. So this was an idea of having these moon technicians that change out the moon, at each part of the cycle. And then he actually goes to great lengths sometimes to hire the props, rent the van, get actors, get the costumes, and use these kind of foam special effect orbs with lighting cues to take his own photographs. So he makes his own assets for compositing and then composites them all together using Photoshop. So most of these are compositing from his own photographs. But then he'll sometimes use found pixels as well. You can watch a whole video on his process. But I wanted to point out, it's very important when you are making your own digital media, your digital imaging, your campaigns, that it comes from an original vision, right? That's why the sketches are so important, because it shows you're not just improvising with found things and trying to make them work. You're working towards a vision that you have, right, for your landscape. And then for our next assignment, for your creature. So these are pretty fun, surrealist ideas. And they can be inspired by art history. This one's inspired by Rene Magritte. He has others that are inspired by M.C. Escher. It's another Magritte-inspired one. But they're definitely his own vision, his own execution of that. And this one always reminds me of Stranger Things. So I feel like it's inspired by Stranger Things, but it's its own vision. Right? This one's an M.C. Escher one. Kind of the optical illusions. Here we go. All right. The next one was another compositing artist who does commercial art and fine art work. And what's interesting about Josh Dijkgraaf's work is that he does not take his own photos, right? More like what we're doing, because we're not a photography class. He is finding all of these resources online. So exactly like what we've done in class, he has sourced all of these things and then cuts out all these assets, these high resolution, pixel assets that are from Creative Commons open sites or public domain sites like Pixabay. And then he arranges them according to his vision. He does sketch, he does kind of know what he wants first, and then making it all fit. Yep, Abraham Lincoln Mech, the Mech of America. Right. So what's the difference? Well, you're expected to do 5 or more references to bring together into a believable landscape. He's using sometimes thousands of different references, right, to make it work. And often his work is sponsored. Often it's for public service campaigns or environmental campaigns, like this one. So this is a bird made entirely out of leaves and bark. This is an elephant made all out of Arctic mountain ice. This is a seahorse made all out of rubber surgical gloves. So this is about, the problem of plastics in our oceans. This is the bot of England, right? Queen of England made up of English monuments. And then this just shows when you cannot find things online easily, and I know that some of you have a vision that's very pure and you can't find the exact reference, right? Then you don't have a lot of choice but to go out and photograph it for yourself, which we might not be able to do on a 3-day timeline, but in your professional lives, photography is a very helpful skill to pick up to add to your digital imaging repertoire. And then this is just another sponsored content. What's funny about this, so this is a very well-paying job. This is for like kind of the financial business report publications of the companies. And it's internal facing, but they have a lot of budget to spend on it. So it's for Volkswagen and kind of the corporate earnings report for stockholders. And it by far is like the one where I feel his heart is not in it, which is often the way with commercial art. So even when you're working as a professional, you're working for clients, you always got to keep your personal interest going because that will get you new work, and hopefully new work that's more and more like the work you most like doing. So those are just some examples of compositing out in the wild. So if I go to post it or post here on the assignments page, I go right to where we were working last class. It gives you the assignment rubric. Just a reminder, because this is our first assignment and today is our first assignment deadline. So you'll see it on our course outline in red, or you can check it on the printout I gave you. It says assignment 1 is due today. It's worth a maximum of 3 points. If you turn nothing in by today, so if there's nothing in here by 11:59 tonight, no sketch, then unfortunately you get a 0 for that project and you cannot resubmit the project, right? So I always want you to acknowledge the deadline by posting your progress as you go. And the required part of your progress for this assignment is your planning sketch, even if your planning sketch ended up being deviated from a lot in your final composite. It's like how you started, it's how you envisioned what you wanted. And then we get to see your composite, wherever it is by the end of today. All right, so what I started with in the demos last class was I posted kind of an optional thing of my inspiration, kind of guided by that inspiration. And then my planning sketch, which is required. I did 2 of them just to show that you can use the same reference in different ways across different formats. And that really shows how it's your own vision. So now I get to keep working on it. So I find my files. I'm going to go ahead and just drag my assignment 1 folder out to my desktop. So I'm going to save all of my stuff like to the desktop. Take my assignment 1, this is it, to the desktop. The most recent one. Oh, that's for another class. That's why it's good to organize this. Here we go. Yep, need that for the other class. And then I'm going to just open up my inspiration and keep it just open in preview up in the corner. So I can click back and kind of be inspired by it as I'm trying to figure out the coloring, the lighting, the edge control, the atmosphere. Now I open up my assignment 1 Photoshop file. You might have to log into Adobe. And this is what I've got. This is where I left it. Now everything that I marked purple, those are the assets I'm using. The smart objects, they are just turned off, but they're there if I need them, if I need high pixel quality. And let's see, when I opened it, I only had the one visible where I had adjusted them. So now we're talking about the direct adjustment workflow. So the direct adjustment workflow is under image adjustments. So for people's pixels, whether they're your own pixels from photographs, whether they're other people's pixels from Pixabay, as long as they're high resolution, this is how we can control their lighting and their color. So the first direct adjustment workflow I always want you to do is levels. That's the most important. So these are in order of priority. Levels is the lights and the darks. And what's safe to use is this mid-tone slider. So you can push them darker, you can push them lighter, right? And I want a moody background here, so I'm going to push it maybe about right there. And then you can limit highlights with this slider. Maybe I'll limit them just slightly more. Or you can limit shadows, which I don't want to do because that will brighten it up. So what's the difference there? I had already done levels once, so there's going to be a very subtle difference. But I brightened it up just a tiny bit. The next direct adjustment that's absolutely essential is color balance. And this was a question in yesterday's class. Can you take all the color out, right? And the answer is no, you cannot. You do not want to. We could take all the saturation out and make these all black and white, but that's going to immediately flatten the potential of your landscape to have visual depth. So you don't need to have super colorful landscapes, but you can't have landscapes that are devoid of all color, right? That will just limit you too much into the future, at least for the assignment you turn in. You can always take away the color later for your own personal work. Okay, color balance is the temperature of the lighting. So this is subtle color shifts. Start with midtones. I'm going to push it a little bit more towards blue, a little bit more towards magenta. You see how it's starting to match that sky a little bit? And it's not that I want it to match exactly the sky, but I want it to feel like it's turning into the purple of the sky as things recede. And then shadows, same thing. I can push things a little bit further. Colors have values, right? Like red is a pretty dark, warm color, whereas yellow is a very light, warm color. So if I push things like the highlights towards yellow, the whole thing's going to get brighter. If I push those highlights towards blue, it's going to feel like it gets a little bit darker. If I push it towards red, it's going to feel like it gets a little bit darker. So these are subtle shifts. Basically, whenever you're using direct adjustments, you want to avoid going all the way to the edges. You want to kind of stay in the mid-ranges of all the tools so that you don't hurt the pixel quality by either blasting out or making things too dark that you can't make use of them later. But you see how clear those pixels are. And now we've got the color matching a little bit. So this was it before. You see how it's kind of greenish. Now it's got that kind of cool and magenta tone to it, which is going to help it blend better with that sky behind it. Okay. The last one, and I have them up on the board, and these are called the direct adjustments, and the workflow for them is in this order: levels, color balance. The last one you use as needed because it's the one that does big swings, and that is hue saturation. So hue saturation, first of all, saturation means intensity of color. So if I like this mountain and I like its lighting, but it just needs to be more colorful, I can up the saturation. Or I can take the saturation down. Remember, don't take it to 0 or minus 100. Leave some color in there, please. Also, don't click colorize because colorize will turn it into a monochrome. And you want to have that pixel variety of color. So because it's near the background, I don't need it to be super colorful. So I'm actually going to dim the saturation just a little bit. And then the hue slider, this is the really crazy one. This is what gives you like psychedelic shifts in the spectrum. And usually if I use this, I just use it like within 5 or so points, either to the left or to the right. And I've been looking at the projector, but I should look at my computer screen. There we go. I think that's about what I want. Okay, so those are the 3 direct adjustments: levels, color balance, and hue saturation. Now, I'm ready to start blending these two. And usually if I'm working professionally, my workflow is to go ahead and adjust all of these, before I even start cutting out. but I know some of you are already to where you're trying to do fine cutouts. So I want to